Minimalists.
How do you handle when your enough is different from your partner's enough?
Here's the thing. Your enough is always going to be different from your partner's enough.
Yeah.
Even if Bex and I are so similar, and even our aesthetic preferences are very similar. Mm-hmm. But her idea of enough is different from my idea of enough.
Sure. She likes to go camping.
Yes.
You don't like pretending you're poor.
Right. I didn't have to pretend for 18 years.
Right.
And another 2 years in my early 30s. Yeah. No, I've identified what's enough for me. Mm-hmm. It's not about identifying what's enough for your partner.
Yeah.
That's just a type of comparison.
Yeah. It's interesting because the saying identify enough makes me feel like, and I know this isn't what you're saying, but it sounds like, oh, I've identified enough, so let me write it out for you right now.
Yeah.
And let me take a picture of it for you.
Sure.
And you can't really identify enough that way.
Right.
I mean, it's always going to be a feeling. It's going to be it's like a sunset. You know a sunset when you see it, but you can't hold on to it.
Right. Right. And by the way, at what moment do you call a sunset a sunset?
Right.
Because is it 3 minutes before it has gone under the horizon?
Maybe it's the millisecond that it goes under the horizon, but then it's over.
Right.
It's only for, technically, if that's how you identify it, then it only happens for a millisecond.
Right. And so maybe expanding your understanding of enough by realizing, like, a sunset, there isn't a moment the sunset starts.
Right.
It actually starts before it's a sunset.
Yeah.
And so enough also starts by realizing, like, oh, I have more than enough right now. And I'm going to get to an area that's closer to enough by subtracting. Mm-hmm. I'm getting closer to the sunset, but then eventually I'll get to enough, and it may not be enough. It may not be enough anymore. Yeah. And therefore it's starting the process all over again. But it's my enough. Mm-hmm. And recognizing, and then we have this 4-step process Ryan and I have. It's an acronym we use, TARA, T-A-R-A. Mm-hmm. When we look at someone else, understanding that, Bex, she has a different kind of enough from me. Yeah. And it, as Ryan says, it's not a number of things. That can be a part of the essence. That's the form. Sure. And so she likes plants more than me. So the form of her version of enough is more plants than what I would have in my own house, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. It's fine. I'm not opposed to those plants. In fact, I go through the Terra analogy. At first it was like, okay, I'll tolerate those plants in the house. Mm-hmm. I don't want them. Okay, fine. But, wow, these sure do enhance her experience of life. Mm-hmm. And if her experience of life is enhanced, isn't my experience of life enhanced? So I go from tolerance to the next big step, which is acceptance. Mm-hmm. I've accepted the fact, like, oh, wow, yeah, she does get some joy out of this. Yep. This helps her in her life in some way. It enhances her life in some way. It serves a purpose in her life in some way. Even if it doesn't in mine, it now all of a sudden serves a purpose in mine by proxy. Mm. And so I move on to that third letter, another big step, respect, because it also serves a purpose in my life. It's a bit selfish to say that, but it's the truth. Yeah. Well, now I can respect it because it doesn't directly serve me, but it serves her, and I respect her, so I get to respect her relationship. As long as she's not doing something that's harming herself or harming others, then of course there's a time to not respect or tolerate. If she started going around spewing racism online, I'm not going to tolerate or appreciate that, which appreciate is the last step there. If we can truly get to that place where it's not just respecting their proclivities, but wow, you know what? That plant is kind of beautiful. It's not what I would have if I lived alone, but yeah, that is beautiful. Bravo, Bex. Man, that's a much better place to be in than, why do we have these stupid plants? I would never have these.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like a worst case scenario where, we've had people come to our live events and they're like, I'm here because my partner is a hoarder and I'm trying to talk them out of their stuff. And, to a situation like that, which is, again, an extreme example, first and foremost, there's some miscommunication between you and your partner about what the boundaries are for stuff, which is okay. But if it's that hoarding type situation, I mean, there's obviously something much deeper there than just setting up some boundaries.
Yeah, there's a mental illness with hoarding. We did a whole hoarding episode about this, right?
Right. But luckily, I doubt Stephanie here is in that situation.
Yeah.
Where her husband's a hoarder. Or her partner's a hoarder. So if your partner's things are taking away from your, what do you want to call it, tranquility?
Yeah.
Your peace? Let's just say peace.
Yes.
If your partner's things are taking away from your peace, that is something you have to bring to your partner. And it's not something that is going to be solved overnight, but you go to your partner and you try to support them as much as you can. You tolerate them as much as you can, respect them, appreciate them as much as you can. But ultimately, there might have to be a conversation where you say, hey, look, I go out of my way to respect you and to love you, and I want you to be happy. And I know that you want the same thing for me. You respect me, you love me, you want me to be happy. Well, the amount of things that you have, it's really encroaching on my peace.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to set up some boundaries with me so we can both get most of what we want?
Right. And by the way, it's in doing that, well, I love the way you're approaching it, Ryan, because it's not, hey, your problem is causing me problems.
Right.
Because, no, it's not a problem for them, clearly. And even if it is a problem, it's not up to you to determine that it's a problem. It has become a problem for you. Now, the problem isn't the stuff. And you've identified that, Ryan. What you identified is, the problem is the disruption in my tranquility.
Right.
And in that disruption, that what is birthed out of that is a difficult conversation, a boundary that may need to be set. Or, conversely, it may be that like, this isn't actually a problem. The plant scenario I did with Bex is I was able to get to a place where I could appreciate that. And then all of a sudden, the problem dissipated. And as soon as the problem as soon as it was eradicated, then I didn't need a solution at all.
Right.
I didn't even need a boundary.
Right.
Now, if she brought in 7 more plants, then we're going to have a conversation about this.
Right, because it would be interrupting your tranquility.
Yes.
It would be interrupting your peace. Yeah.
Now, we have a rule in our house. This is helpful to have a nice little rule. Now, you have to agree on this together because you can't say, here's our new rule, Bex.
Right.
But the rule that we came up with together after many conversations, and by the way, that's why I love doing a podcast with her. It's kind of like when we do How to Love, it's almost us like talking through our relationship policies over and over and over, like trying to and it refines our policies in public or in semi-public. And anyway,
so the policy you have
with her is we don't bring anything new into the house unless we've both agreed to bring it in. Now, that's restrictive to me, and it removes a little bit of my freedom, but it's how I maintain the peace. I give up a little bit of freedom because now I can't just, I'm going to bring, you know what, we really need a new couch. Because that's not being a good partner, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, it's not being a considerate partner.
Right.
It's taking only my preferences into consideration. But if we're going to bring something in the house, whether it's a blender or a bed or a new coat hanger, then it has to be agreed on by both of us. Now, we can do it in a way that isn't combative. Hey, Bex, what do you think of this coat hanger? I was thinking of replacing our coat hanger. You know, we've had it for a long time. I don't really care for the design that much. What do you think of this one? And she might say, is that really the best use of our money? That coat hanger is $40. And you know what? You're right. But there is an alternative. It's $35. And, you know, we can talk about it in a way where it's never judgmental. As soon as we judge, we lose our ability to love.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.